In the Second Chance Part 1, Nandi's life took a dramatic turn when she was fired by the cold CEO, Thando, after a simple mistake at her cleaning job. Struggling to survive, she unexpectedly found herself working again, this time as a housekeeper in Thando's mansion. But tension grew as their worlds collided, and the stakes became much higher. If you missed Part 1, be sure to watch it for the full backstory. Now, let's dive into Part 2 as Nandi faces new challenges and perhaps an unexpected shot at love. When Nandi finished cleaning, she found the day's wages on the counter. She clutched the money, grateful for even this small mercy. But as she and Zanele were about to leave, Thando appeared in the doorway again. "Wait," he said, his voice stopping her in her tracks. Nandi turned, her heart in her throat. "Yes, sir?" Thando's expression had softened, though it still held a hint of the cold man she had met before. "How much do you owe your landlord?" The question took Nandi by surprise. I'm 2 months behind. 20,000 rand. Thando nodded thoughtfully, as if making a decision. "I'll pay your rent for the next 3 months, on one condition." Nandi stared at him, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. "Condition?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "You work here full-time as the housekeeper," Thando said. "You and your daughter can live in the apartment. I'll pay you a fair wage and you'll be able to stay on the property." Nandi felt tears welling up in her eyes. This was the lifeline she had prayed for, but fear gnawed at her. Could she really trust this man? Could she work for someone who had shown her such coldness before? Still, what choice did she have? "Yes, sir," she whispered. "Thank you." Weeks passed, and Nandi settled into her new routine. Every day she worked hard to keep the massive house clean and organized. Mrs. Van Wyk was kind but strict, teaching her the ways of the house and making sure everything was in order. Zanele too seemed to thrive in the new environment. She had her own small room in the apartment, and she spent her days exploring the garden or reading the books she'd been given. Nandi saw a light in her daughter's eyes that hadn't been there in a long time, and for that, she was grateful. But despite the sense of stability, Nandi couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong in this world. The house was too grand, the people too distant, and there was another, more pressing concern. Naledi? Naledi was Thando's fiancée, a strikingly beautiful woman with an air of confidence that made Nandi feel small. She often visited the house, and while her interactions with Nandi were polite, there was a coldness in her gaze that Nandi couldn't ignore. It began with subtle comments. "You've settled in nicely, haven't you?" Naledi would say, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Thando's too kind for his own good, but don't get too comfortable. This arrangement won't last forever." Nandi kept her head down, avoiding confrontation. She reminded herself that she was here to work, nothing more. But the tension was building, and she knew it was only a matter of time before something happened. One evening, after Zanele had gone to bed, Nandi was cleaning the living room when Naledi stormed in, her face flushed with anger. In her hand was a piece of paper, which she shoved in Nandi's face. "What is this?" Naledi hissed. "You've been receiving money from Thando? Large sums of it?" Nandi's heart sank as she realized what Naledi was talking about. Thando had been helping her with Zanele's school fees and other expenses. It had been a gesture of kindness, but now it was being twisted into something ugly. "I didn't ask for it," Nandi said quietly, trying to stay calm. "He offered to help." Naledi's eyes blazed with fury. "Help? Is that what you call it? You're taking advantage of him. You think you can worm your way into his life, into this house? You're nothing but a charity case." Nandi swallowed her fear, standing her ground. "I'm not trying to take anything from you," she said firmly. "I'm just doing my job and taking care of my daughter." Naledi stepped closer, her voice lowering to a venomous whisper. You think I don't see what's happening? You're trying to steal him from me. But I won't let that happen. You don't belong here, and I'm going to make sure you're thrown out where you should be. Before Nandi could respond, the door to the living room opened, and Thando walked in. His eyes flicked from Naledi to Nandi, and his face immediately darkened. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice calm but stern. Naledi whirled around to face him. "She's manipulating you, Thando. She's taking advantage of your kindness, and you're too blind to see it." Thando's face hardened. "That's enough," he said sharply. "Nandi isn't manipulating anyone. I helped her because she needed it, and it was the right thing to do." Naledi's eyes filled with fury. "You're a fool, Thando. You're letting her into your life, and she's going to ruin everything we've built." Thando sighed, rubbing his temples. "Naledi, we need to talk." Naledi looked at him, her expression shifting from anger to fear. "What are you saying?" Thando's voice softened, but his words were firm. "I'm saying that this isn't working. Us. You've been trying to control everything in my life, but that's not what I need. I think it's time we go our separate ways." Naledi's face twisted with disbelief. "You're ending this? For her?" she spat, gesturing toward Nandi. "This isn't about her," Thando said calmly. "It's about us, and this relationship isn't what it used to be." For a moment, Naledi stood frozen, her hands clenched into fists. Then, without another word, she turned and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. Nandi stood in shock, unable to believe what had just happened. Thando turned to her, his expression softening. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," he said quietly. Nandi shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You didn't?" Thando said, his gaze lingering on her for a moment longer than necessary. This was long overdue. The weeks that followed were quieter, though the tension from Naledi's departure lingered in the air. Thando became more present, often joining Nandi and Zanele for meals or spending time with them in the garden. There was a growing connection between him and Zanele, and Nandi couldn't help but feel her heart soften toward him. But as much as she enjoyed their moments together, Nandi couldn't shake the feeling of uneasy. What if Naledi was right? What if this was all too good to be true? One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set, Thando broke the comfortable silence. "Nandi, I've been thinking a lot about us." Nandi turned to him, her heart skipping a beat. "Us?" Thando nodded, his eyes serious but warm. "You and Zanele. You've become more than just my housekeeper. You've become my family, and I care about you a lot." Nandi felt her breath catch in her throat, her mind spinning with conflicting emotions. She had felt something growing between them, but she had never dared to hope that it could be anything more than a friendship. Thando reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box, opening it to reveal a simple, elegant ring. "I know this is sudden," he said softly, "but I love you, Nandi, and I want us to build a life together. Will you marry me?" For a moment, Nandi couldn't speak. Her heart pounded in her chest and tears filled her eyes. This man, who had once been a stranger, was now offering her and Zanele a future she had never dreamed possible. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Yes, I'll marry you." Thando's face broke into a smile as he slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as the last light of the day faded. The wedding was small, held in the garden of the mansion, surrounded by close friends and family. As Nandi stood at the altar, holding Thando's hands, she felt a sense of overwhelming gratitude. She had been through so much, loss, struggle, fear, but now she had found a place where she belonged. Zanele stood beside her, beaming with pride. The girl who had once been weighed down by uncertainty and fear was now thriving, her smile brighter than ever. As Thando kissed her, Nandi knew that this was only the beginning. There would still be challenges ahead, but for the first time in years, she felt like she could face them with the man who had given her a second chance at love and the daughter who had never stopped believing in her. This was their second chance at life, and they were ready to embrace it together. The end. Thanks for listening.